Welcome back, everyone. This is the sealed tournament of the century presented by mtg-world.com. This is the second quarterfinal match between David and Kouji, the winner of which will go on to face Will in the semifinals. Once again, I'm joined by my co-caster Adam, and we're picking up the match after one round of mulligans apiece, so both David and Kouji are down to 6 cards. A quick cut from both players. Alright, both players dealing out their new hands, and it looks like Kouji's
got 5 lands and a grizzly bear. David's got a fallen angel, looks like a pirate ship.
Spell Blast, and an island and a swamp.
I guess they both keep.
David plays a swamp and passes to Kouji.
Top deck's a wild growth. We got I guess he saw it with his scry earlier.
Yep, this tournament played under modern rules, so both players allowed to scry after their mulligans.
There we got our turn 2 grizzly bear coming down.
That's a 2/2 for 2, of course.
Draws a control magic, plays his 3rd land. Doesn't look like he has any more lands in his hand, though.
And that's a Nettling Imp from David, a 1/1 flyer for 3.
Kouji gets in for 2. David's down to 18. Plays a Fire Sprites.
That's a 1/1 flyer for 2. You can also filter a green mana into red mana.
Looks like no more lands on David's side. Rough situation to be in.
Especially when you draw a 4-mana card like that Phantasmal Forces. David elects to attack with his Nettling Imp. That's an interesting attack, to be sure.
Alright, looks like they trade.
I feel like the Nettling Imp is a little more valuable than that Fire Sprites, but he chose to attack into it anyway.
But maybe it's difficult when you don't have any lands to play your other cards. Alright, we got a Moss Monster, a 3/6 for 5.
Not too flashy, but it gets the job done.
I think David is trying to Spell Blast it, but Spell Blast doesn't do what he thinks it does. I think he's getting the card confused with Power Sink.
Power Sink would have been pretty great in that spot. Spell Blast, on the other hand, can be hard to use when you're down mana against your opponent.
Right now he's playing a Phantasmal Forces. This is a 4/1 flyer for 4 that has an upkeep of 1 blue mana.
That upkeep will further constrain David's mana on future turns. Meanwhile, Kouji is swinging in for 5. David may just consider trading down here to free up his island.
Alright, he blocks the grizzly bear, so they trade those two. Takes 3.
David's down to 13.
Oh, here comes the Crawworm.
The Crawdaddy himself. A 6/4 for 6. An absolute monster in this format.
Looks like David's not doing too well on mana.
And that Goblin Balloon Brigade's not really what you want to see with no mountains, staring down a bunch of fatties. Meanwhile, Kouji's beaters just keep on beating. He gets in for 9 more. And David sees the writing on the wall, decides to scoop at 4 life.
Yeah, he just drew a Pyrotechnics.
Which can kill a Crawworm, but only if you can cast it.
It doesn't look like these guys are sideboarding at all, so I guess they feel pretty comfortable with their decks.
Comfortable enough to shuffle them in penny sleeves, at least. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and fast forward through some of this shuffling here. David cuts into Kouji's deck. Kouji, on the other hand, says, "Nope, you're good. Let's get this show on the road." Alright, Koji's got 2 lands, one of each color. He's probably going to be pretty happy with that. And David's looking at a grip with a couple lands and, among other things, a Sengir Vampire.
He goes one with a turn 1 Goblin Balloon Brigade.
And Kouji tries to play an Orcish Artillery. This is a pretty interesting alpha misprint. The mana cost says 1 colorless and 1 red, but in reality it costs 1 colorless and 2 red. This was corrected in beta and all further printings.
Right, so he actually put that back in his hand and just passed turn instead. David gets him for 1, so it puts Kouji down to 19.
I imagine Koji's just confirming with the judge here the Oracle text and casting cost on Orcish Artillery, which again is 2 red and 1 colorless mana.
And so you'll notice that Kouji actually doesn't have a second red, so he can only play this Hornet Cobra.
That's a 2/1 first striker for 3 mana.
David just top decked a weakness. Quite convenient for that Hornet Cobra, I would say.
Well, it's not like Hornet Cobras can fly anyways.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to be paying 1 red mana just for Goblin Balloon Brigade every turn. Alright, the Hornet Cobra's gone, gets him for 1. Koji's down to 18.
Alright, Kouji untaps, and can he draw a mountain?
No mountain.
Down comes a Barbary Ape.
So this is just another Grizzly Bear?
A 2/2 for 2. Though in a fight I think I'd have to go with the Grizzly Bears myself. And Goblin Balloon Brigade takes to the skies once more and nugs Kouji for 1 damage. David then spends the rest of his mana and plays a Lost Soul.
This is a 3 mana 2/1 with Swamp Walk. Alright, I think Kouji just drew another forest. No second red still.
He's got a lot of red cards in his hand.
You see how much he wants to play that Orcish Artillery. It would really take care of a lot of things on board.
And then some. Tap, deal 2 damage to any target, all for the modest price of just dealing 3 damage to yourself as well. It's an exceptionally powerful ability in limited formats. And if I'm not mistaken, Orcish Artillery even saw play in Constructed in slide decks back in the day.
Alright, looks like Koji's contemplating one of his only plays, putting a regeneration on his Barbary Apes.
Definitely not the sort of creature you want to be putting regeneration on, but he is also starting to fall behind, so I can definitely understand why he feels like he needs to make that play.
Alright, looks like David just hit 5 mana. I'm betting that Sengir Vampire is going to come down.
Seems like a pretty safe bet. It's one of the most powerful creatures in Alpha. If you have the opportunity to play it, you most likely should. And there it is. Sengir Vampire, of course, a 4/4 flyer. It has an ability that's almost never relevant. If it helps to kill a creature, you get to put a +1/+1 counter on it.
There's almost no answer to Sengir Vampire in this format, right? You got Swords to Plowshares and I guess Fireball.
Yeah, one of the premium common pieces of removal, Terror, cannot target black creatures.
Yeah, if Kouji actually had that Orcish Artillery in play, he could have killed the Sengir Vampire along with his Lightning Bolt, but now it's probably going to be too late if he even draws a second red source.
Alright, David tapping some mana. Never mind. Maybe he wants to save whatever that was for second main. David swings in with that vampire, and things are looking pretty grim for Kouji. David contemplating casting that Bloodlust on something.
Hopefully not the Sengir Vampire.
That would have made it vulnerable to a lightning bolt.
But I guess if he wanted to do that, he would have done that before combat.
Yeah, not really sure what David was thinking there, but Kouji's probably going to need that sort of misplay if he's going to get back into this game.
Alright, he plays the pirate chip. That's probably going to eat a lightning bolt immediately.
The pirate ship's not super threatening since Kouji doesn't have any islands, so it can't attack. It's probably still worth a lightning bolt in this situation, though.
Since the lightning bolt can't kill that Singer Vampire. And he can hope to top deck something like a Fireball or Disintegrate if it's in his deck.
Every single card in Kouji's hand right now has a red mana symbol in its casting cost.
It's quite unfortunate. Alright, it looks like he bolts the pirate ship.
I believe Kouji drew a Craw Worm, which he does not have the mana to cast either. David swings in again. Or is he considering something else? Nope, he decides to attack. Kouji draws for the turn, though it's hard to think of a card in Alpha or Legends that would do him much good in these circumstances. And there's a Wild Growth. More green mana, just what Kouji needed. Singer Vampire into the red zone once again. And David nudges Kouji with that Fireball twice, which is good enough for lethal. Once again, I'll save you all the tedium of watching several minutes of shuffling, and take the opportunity to further introduce the players to you. David is from Ohio in the United States, and he's been playing Magic almost since the beginning. He started playing in 1994. His favorite cards are Sinkhole and Moat. His favorite set, strangely enough, is Unlimited, and his favorite deck is Mono White Stacks. Kouji is from Japan, and he started playing Magic just a little bit later in Ice Age. His favorite card is Fault Line. His favorite set is the unbelievably busted Urza Saga. And his favorite deck is the almost equally busted Mind's Desire. With that, we pick up the match with both players having mulliganed once. Both players also elected to sideboard this time around, with David removing a Spellblast and adding a Paralyze, while Kouji removed a Forest and added a Mountain.
Looks like no lands for Kouji. And a couple of lands, some spells for David.
Doesn't look like he has any red mana, but he has an island and a swamp and a Sengir Vampire.
Looks like a somewhat greedy keep. He has quite a few high casting cost creatures, but only 2 lands.
He probably feels like the average 5-card hand isn't likely to be any better, though.
Alright, is 5 going to do the trick for Kouji?
Of course, when you know your opponent's going from 6 to 5, you can also afford to be a little greedier.
It's true. But I think Koji's on the draw, so David actually had to decide first. Because he decided to on the draw. So I guess he's going down to 4 now.
Kouji dealt yet another hand with no lands in it. It's really awful to lose a game and a match to land screw. I suppose it's not over yet, though.
Let's see if 4 does the trick.
Once again, it looks like he has no lands.
But seems like he's going to keep.
Gives David the thumbs up.
No land at the top, it seems. Alright, pass this turn. Looks like we might have a quick game here.
I'm not even sure I'd really call it a game, but unfortunately this just sometimes happens in Magic. And that was a Wall of Earth for David. A 0-6 for 2. And there's Kouji's first land, so maybe he has a hope and a prayer this game.
No land again for Kouji. And we've got a Lesser Werewolf.
Lesser Werewolf is an absolute disaster of old design. So what this does is you can spend a little mana to give Lesser Werewolf -1/-0, and then you can put a -0/-1 counter on any creature blocking or blocked by the Lesser Werewolf.
As long as it doesn't reduce his power to below 0. So he's a 2/4, by the way. Kouji made his second land drop. But of course, by this time, David already has a Singer Vampire in play. And he's only got red mana now.
Kouji's got to be wondering where the heck those mountains were last game. In comes the team.
Alright, so Kouji's down to 12 now. And he scoops it up. He knows he can't catch up to that board.
Well, that's Magic, folks. David moves on to the semifinals.